Hey, you've tuned into Math with Mr. C. This time we're doing 14.5, finding the percent of a number. This time we're actually finding the answer, not just estimating. Moving on to in 3, 2, 1. Please complete your homework. If you don't have the exact same answer as what we have written in red, that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you estimated differently. As long as your answer is somewhat close, then you're correct. All right, let's do our first example problem. Finding the percent of a number. How can you calculate percentages? The 4th, 5th, and 6th graders at Green Oak School are taking a field trip to the museum. The circle graph shows what percent of the students are in each grade. Of the 575 students attending the field trip, how many are 6th graders? On the graph, it doesn't tell me that this piece of information, that total it's 575. Next, I'm going to read what the key about which one 6th graders is. It's green, so I see that 6th graders are 36%. So basically they're asking me, of 575 students, how many are 6th graders from 36%? So you do 36% of 575. But first, let's estimate. When I estimate, I know that 36 is about 40%. You could also estimate it to 35 or 33%, like 1/3. And this is about 600. Obviously, we could also estimate this to 580. And next, 40% of 600 is, first let's cross simplify. I can divide by 10 again. And there's no more zeros, so 40 times 6. I know that 6 times 4 is 24. Add a 0, 240. So my answer should be close to 240, with a clue word of chicken and waffles. Next, to actually solve it, we're going to use our awesome skills of making a percentage quickly into a decimal. I remember that we move it twice to the left, and I remember that because there's 2 zeros here. I go 1, 2, and then it's a decimal. 36% is the same as 36 hundredths as a decimal. If you need to write that as a fraction first, 36 hundredths, in order to remember how to make it a decimal, then you can. And then 36% of 575, when you multiply that, that's 207. So 240 is close to 207, so the answer is reasonable. This was my estimate answer. Just a reminder of how we should write that. It would look like that. So you might notice that this is slightly more work than just estimating, and that's okay, because we have done decimal multiplication before, and that's exactly all that this is. It's just decimal multiplication. There are no vocab notes for today. All right, let's read our problem for example 1, and then I'll let you know what you should write. Kevin had $180 in savings. He used his savings to buy a new bicycle that cost him $108. What percent of his total savings did the bicycle cost? So here's $180. This is 100% of his total savings. He used 108. What percent did he use of his savings? Well, we're going to use our knowledge that we can make a decimal into a percent to solve this problem. What do you mean by our knowledge of making decimals and percents? Well, we know that if we have 32% here, we can make it into a decimal. We can move it twice to the left. And 32% as a decimal is 32 hundredths. Likewise, if we have a decimal, we can make it into a percent. We know that we're going to move it twice back to the right. How do I know to make it to the right? Well, when you move it to the right, 1, 2, you write 24, and then the percentage sign goes on the right. What that tells me is that I have gone 2 places to the right from a decimal number. So that helps me to know that the percentage sign is on the right. So we can go from a percentage to a decimal. We can also go from a decimal to a percent. And that's what we're going to do here when they ask what percent is 108 from 180. So, I could just go ahead and I could divide, because I know that I'll get a decimal that way. But 108 divided by 180 does not seem that simple, and I'm not really in the mood to divide that. I don't really want, that's a lot of work, and that's some big multiplication. Can I make it easier at all? Well, I have my fraction, and I can simplify it first before I divide, and that'll make it a lot easier. I see that I can divide this by 2, And so I'll get 100 divided by 2 is 50. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so that's 54. 54 90ths. I see it's still even. I'm going to keep dividing by 2. 26. Oh, it's 27. And 90 divided by 2 is 45. And right now I'm thinking, can I simplify it any further? I can. I know that when I add these together, 2 plus 7 is 9, and 4 plus 5 is 9. So I know I can divide them by 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And 45 divided by 3 is 15. Man, I can just keep going. So 108 80ths is basically just a giant version of 3/5. Is it easier to divide 3 divided by 5? I think it is. That's a 0, and 5 times 6 is 30. And I have my answer. Shibuya. So as long as you're willing to simplify like this, big problems can be made really simple, and I like that. After you're done writing our work here, you can unpause the video. So now we have the decimal, and I remember that I can make a decimal into a percent, and the percent goes on the right side, and that tells me that I'm going to go 2 to the right. So if I go 2 to the right, then I will have the decimal here. It'll be 60%. Therefore, right here is 60%. Next problem in 3, 2, 1. Here is our number 2. Jeff got a discount at Kohl's. The $40 shirt was now $16. What percent of the original price does he need to pay? I want to know what percent 16 is of 40. What percent of the original does he need to pay? So I remember that first I can simplify this if I don't like dividing bigger numbers. I see that 16 and 40, I can divide both by 4. So I have 4/10. I can also simplify it further, making it 2/5. Once I get to that point, I know I need to make a decimal. 2 divided by 5. If I had 20 sheep, how many groups of 5 would I have? I'd have 4. And so my answer is 4/10. Does that answer it? What percent? Okay, I need to make that into a percentage. So I'm going to move the decimal twice to the right, making 4/10 into 40%. I just made 4/10 into a percentage, and that is my answer, 40%. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Here's our example 2. I see there's different directions for each, so I'm going to need to read that. For this number 1, estimate and then find the percent of each number. I'm going to multiply straight across. This one has different directions, so you'd have to read that one. I'm going to help you with estimating first. I know that 26%, that's about 25. 50, I can keep it there, so 25% of 50. And that's how we're going to estimate. You can simplify and then multiply straight across. I see that I can still simplify here. 5 divided by 5 is 1, 2, 25 halves. So my estimate should be about 12.5. And then find your actual answer. Showing you the answer to number 1 right here in 3, 2, 1. 26% times 50, or of 50. First I'm going to simplify, dividing those by 10. Next I can divide both of these by 5. I get 2, and here I get 1. And I can even simplify up and down. 26 halves can be simplified by 2, so I get 1 down here, and up here I get 13, giving me the answer of 13 times 1, which is 13, is my actual answer. 13 is close to 12.5. Showing you the answer to the next one in 3, 2, 1. 1. Oh, I see this one's slightly different. It says write what percent the first number is of the second number. That means that I'm going to need to divide them and find a decimal and make that into a percent. Oh, dang, I almost did it the other way. So when estimating, 18 is about 20, 62 is about 60. I can simplify I can divide 2 and 6 by 2. So my answer should be about 1/3, meaning 0.33. My answer should be close to that. So when actually doing it, 18 divided by 62 will give you a decimal for what number 18 is of 62. Basically, just if you have a pizza and there's 62 slices and you have 18, what percent of the pizza do you have? That's how I think of it. I can simplify first, dividing by 2. So I have 9 here. If I divide this by 2, I get 31. I cannot simplify further, so I'm going to need to divide 9 divided by 31. 31 goes into 90 twice. 62, subtracting 28, I borrowed. Bring down a 0. And showing you the rest of this work, I see that it's not going to be answered very easily. I got 0.29 and then 0.3, and it's not really going to change the answer that much. So my real answer will be 0.29. And if I want to make that into a percent, I move it twice, 1, 2. So that's 29%. Is that close to 0.33 or 33%? Yes, it is. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. For independent or partners practice, I'm going to show you the answers to 14 and 15. Once you have them completed, unpause the video in 3, 2, 1. For 14, I had 2.5% of 16. I wanted to get rid of that decimal, so I multiplied the top and the bottom by 10. Now I have 25 thousandths times 16. To simplify, I can divide 16 and 1,000 by 2. I have 8, and I have 500. I can divide them by 2 again, getting 4 and 250. And I can divide them by 2 again, getting 2 and 125. Now I'm going to look up and down if I can simplify top to bottom. 25 over 100. Oh yeah, I can divide both of those by 25. $1.25. Well, that's 5 quarters, and this is 1 quarter. So now it's super easy. 1 times 2 is 2. 5 times 1 is 5. So my answer would be 2/5, but I need that as a decimal. So there's my answer, 0.4. Does that even make sense? Well, 2.5% is pretty small of 16, so 0.4 does make sense. Showing you 15 in 3, 2, 1. 24% of 17. First, I'm going to want to simplify the top and bottom. Can I divide these by something? I can divide them by 2. Here I get 12, and here I get 50. I can divide them by 2 again, getting 25 and 6. Can I simplify them further? I cannot at this time. So I'm going to multiply across. 6 times 17, which is 102. 25 times 1 is 25. 102 25ths. Dividing. It goes in 4 times. I'm going to need to add a decimal, bring down a 0. Doesn't go into that. Make another 0. How many quarters are in $2? 8. And that's my answer. 4 8/100ths is 24% of 17. Next, showing you the answers to 22 and 23 after you have your work in 3, 2, 1. If I had a pizza that was 72 slices, what percent would I have if I had 32 of them? I have simplified it down all the way to 4/9. Now I'm going to divide. I am noticing a trend here that it's repeating. I know that because I see 40, and then I see 40 again. Therefore, my answer, I'm going to bring up my decimal, and it's going to be 0.4 with a line over it. Repeating. Therefore, does that answer my question? Well, what percent? So I'm going to need to make that decimal 0.444444 into a percent. Move it over twice, 44%. Showing number 23 in 3, 2, 1. Luckily, those could simplify very easily down to 1/5. Dividing 1/5, I get 0.2. Moving 0.2 into a percent, I know I have to go 1, 2, and it becomes 20% is my answer. Thank you for watching this video. Please click the Khan Academy link, video and practice first, and then choose one of these two options, knowing that this is really book 3. Thanks for watching this, and you're awesome.